Welcome back, everybody. It's a brand new episode of 5 Minute Majors. I'm your host, Derek Harper. Well, let's get right to it. We're going to talk today about the WHL and specifically Berkeley Catton of the Spokane Chiefs and now the Seattle Kraken. So, Catton is an incredible player drafted eighth overall by the Kraken in this year's draft. You could liken him to Zach Benson of the Buffalo Sabres, who previously put in the WHL on the Winnipeg Ice, who are now the Wenatchee Wild. You could also liken him to a lot of other young players around the league. I mean, this year's draft is really star-studded, so it'll be interesting to see how he turns out. But with that come a lot of questions because Catton is really young. He's 18, so he could be sent back to WHL, or he could learn from the NHL guys. Now, the question will be after those certain number of games pass by, the Kraken will have to make that choice. Unfortunately, it could be very tough, and they just send him back, and then maybe he would have fit. But sending him back could be very good too for these Spokane Chiefs because he'd be that veteran presence. So he'd be able to lead the team, put the team on his back, and maybe even help them make a deeper postseason run than even last season, where they were swept in 4 games. So we'll see what happens there. It'll be very interesting. Um, but Zach Benson, he was selected by the Sabres and he played all season. Not every game, but about 71 games. So almost all of them. Granted, the Sabres are a rebuilding team. The Kraken, I don't know if you call them rebuilding because they almost made the conference finals 2 seasons ago. They were a win away. But last season, they didn't even make the playoffs. So it's going to be interesting to see how things work out. Ron Francis will have to make that decision soon. Early into the regular season, they can't even play 10 games. I believe it's something like 9. But it'll be very, very interesting to see what happens there. He did sign an entry level contract, so he is completely signed to the team. Everything is settled there. He signed it during the Kraken's development camp, so that was pretty cool for him in front of all the fans and stuff. So the team's fired up. Francis is fired up, obviously, and the fans. It'll be very, very interesting to see what happens because he could learn from players like Shane Wright, who will probably play for the Kraken a lot this season, who spent basically the majority of last season with the AHL's Coachella Valley Firebirds, who will now have a new head coach actually, and former WHL head coach, well, champion head coach rather, Derek Laxdal. He coached the Edmonton Oil Kings to a championship and will now be in the AHL. He also coached in the OHL most recently. So, and he saw a lot of success there. So it'd be interesting to see how he does at the pro level. He has spent time in the AHL before with the Texas Stars. Obviously, that didn't pan out, but you have to think with his talent now, how he's been able to do before. And maybe eventually, the next 2 years, um, we can see Catton spend time in the AHL. But right now, he's so young still that he still has a couple more seasons left of WHL eligibility should the Kraken not keep him past that time this next season. Be Again, it'll be very interesting to see what they do there. But he had a very interesting seasons last year. So a couple of years ago, he did well, but whatever training he put in the offseason, he more than doubled his points. Like he had an increase of 31 goals, which is and the assists, he also more than doubled them if you want to include the playoffs where he dished out 4 assists. But goals, he more than doubled. So this year, he racked up 54 goals and 62 assists for 116 points in 68 games. Granted, the WHL extended their season by 5 games compared to the season before last. But still, despite that, maybe he would have gotten a few less points. But still, 116 points compared to 55 the season before, where he had 23 goals and 32 assists in just 63 games. I don't know what he did this last offseason, but he obviously has improved just vastly. I mean, vastly. So he maybe has a talent to be like Benson and join the W or join the NHL. Maybe he'll talk to Benson. Maybe he'll talk to others. I'm sure he'll get guidance from the team. If he does well in the preseason and in a little bit of the early regular season, maybe they'll keep him. It remains to be seen. But one thing's for sure is he is a very, very big and bright part of their future in years to come. We're hoping that he pans out. Shane Wright obviously is taking a little bit more time to develop. But Oliver Bjorkstrand is another guy that played in the U.S. division, so and he's on the Kraken. So Berkeley Catton could also learn from him. He could talk to him. I'm sure those two will talk about their time in the WHL. Granted, they didn't play for the same organization, but very similar ones, same division, same conference, same league. So there's that. I think it'd be beneficial for him to play in the NHL. With the Kraken wanting to contend and try to get back to their winning ways this next season, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But he definitely has the ability to if he can play up to that level. And I mean, he may not be like the star. I mean, Zach Benson, he played in 71 games this year, but he didn't have too many points. I mean, Benson didn't really stand out with the Sabres because he's so young. He only totaled 11 goals and 19 assists for 30 points. But still, in 71 games for someone who was 18 to 19 at the end of May, that's pretty good. Because with a team that is on the rise a little bit, that is definitely something that teams will be looking for. The Kraken and obviously the Sabres found that in Benson. It'll be interesting though, especially if he goes back to WHL, because the Chiefs could be that much more of a threat. And the Western Conference is still competitive already. So it'll be a very, very interesting fall and very interesting next season. Until then, I'm Derek Harper. We'll see you next week.